kick things off with our game of the weekend. It's the Teesway Derby between Sunderland and Middlesbrough on Saturday lunchtime. Sunderland are 6-4 to win this one with our friends at SPK. A Middlesbrough win is 9-5. What a way to make a living. And the draw is 12-5. It's the derby, which apparently isn't a derby. Sunderland fans in particular are keen to emphasise that they don't care about Boro. But they still seem to have a fair bit of joshing when this fixture comes around, Justin.
It's a derby in everybody else's eyes, and that's what we could take. How about the winner claims Julio Arca as their own?
Ooh, now you're talking. If that was the case, then I think there'd be a lot more fierce debate, I suppose, between fans on social media and what have you.
Yeah, and much more, sort of go to, and you will admit it's a derby if if the winner, as I say, gets to lay claim on the great Julio himself.
Maybe Ledbitter as well. He played for both, didn't he? I think.
I feel he did, but I feel like Julio Arca is very much more of a cool player.
Catamol,
I believe.
Did he play for both as well?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Any more? He's stinking.
Gavin McCann? Did he?
Who?
Gavin McCann?
No, I don't think he did.
I'm not sure he did either. It was just the first player who came to my head. It's because I've been I put out a video last week of me parodying the American Psycho video of the shootout cards or match attacks cards you used to get in the mid to late 2000s, and Gavin McCann was in there, I think, or Sunderland even in the league at the time. I'm not actually sure, but for some reason I could not get Gavin McCann outside of my head. Anyway, let's get back onto matters this weekend, shall we? It's got to be said, this match is particularly intriguing, isn't it? Because Sunderland, who were the early pace setters in the division, smashing everyone who stood in their way, they're coming off the back of their first loss under Regis Lebris last weekend, where they lost 3-2 to Plymouth. So the question is, Justin, how will they respond to that first defeat?
It's a hell of a game to be thrust into the spotlight, isn't it? Derby aside, I think Middlesbrough are a very strong team, as goes without saying. And I think from Sunderland's perspective, when you lose control of a game, as they did last week against Plymouth in the second half, Boro are probably not the side you want to come up against in your next game. They're a fierce attacking outfit. They do. I mean, we'll say this repeatedly over the course of this episode. Middlesbrough are very poor at taking their chances, but they are going to pepper you. So it's a really, really big test for Lebris and his young side. So yeah, it's hard to really sort of break down from that point of view. And the need to bounce back. Yes, it's important, but I think just getting a performance in and making sure you're solid, I think is a good foundation to start upon. Probably a bit of a boring answer, but I don't think Sunderland are going to be as open as they were against Plymouth. They're going to want to tighten up because Boro will pick them off.
Yeah, well, they definitely don't want to give as many chances away as they did in that second half against Plymouth. I would be surprised if they went into their shell all of a sudden after one bad showing, because it wasn't even one bad showing, really. It was just one bad half, wasn't it? They were their own worst enemies, really, weren't they? Because each of the 3 goals they conceded were entirely avoidable. They were just simply individual errors. And these things happen. Like, you're not going to go a whole season without making some individual errors. So you've got to keep in mind that despite what happened, Sunderland have only conceded 1 goal from open play, which was scored by an opposition player so far this season. The other 3 goals were 2 own goals and a penalty. So I'd be surprised if their standards slipped so badly after one setback, but we've seen crazier things happen in football, that's got to be said. And Middlesbrough, as you alluded to, Justin, Middlesbrough are a tricky opposition for Sunderland, aren't they? Even though they have only got the 2 wins to their name so far, still a very tricky opposition. And I've got to say, we are only 5 games in, so it feels a bit premature to be talking about this kind of thing. But Boro do seem to be in a false position for me, because they've definitely played a lot better than the table suggests so far, haven't they?
I agree with that. I just hate the phrase false position. I hate using it. I think it diminishes opposition getting results against other teams. It also gives them an out for being incredibly wasteful. So you can say they're in a false position. because they are creating chances to win games, but they're not seizing those moments, they're not seizing those opportunities. That's not a false position. That's poor football, isn't it? That's poor individual play. We were talking about it at the weekend, how Middlesbrough are still creating chances, but they're falling to the wrong players. So there needs to be a way to get those key individuals in the game more. So I don't believe they're in a false position, because the results tell you they are where they should be. They should be high based on their attacking play, but they're not getting the results, and that's basically that's how football works. You've got to get results yourself. It doesn't matter how you play. You can play as Paul Warne's Derby did against Middlesbrough and get a 1-0 win, and that matters much more than playing Michael Carrick's way and getting a draw or a loss. Despite absolutely
a very literal way of looking at it there, but I do think Middlesbrough are in a false position, because I think if you're looking at it based on have they been the better team in each of their games so far, yes they have. They've had by far the highest XG in the league, as well as the second lowest XG against. So for them to only have the 2 wins so far must be really quite annoying for Michael Carrick. And I get your point, Justin, that yes, it is down to simple individual things like taking your chances. But that's, if you're looking at the team performance as a whole, they have been very, very good so far. I mean, the funny thing is, their worst game against Cardiff was one they actually won. So that must be particularly annoying for Michael Carrick. But they are a really good team, and they've got loads of great players. If they play like they are right now for the rest of the season, they'll definitely finish in the top 6, maybe even the top 2. That's just how well they've been playing so far. It is just about killing games off, and sometimes things can just click in that regard. Do you get what I mean?
I do, but you've got to be near faultless to finish in the top 2, and Middlesbrough aren't. They are making errors.
If they played like they did, minus the faultiness in front of goal for the rest of the season, they definitely would, wouldn't they?
If they were clinical, they'd have a very good chance, but they're not. So you can't lay a game on ifs and buts, can you? You've got to play. Yes, you've got to judge for what's in front of you, Ryan.
Yes, but will the chances keep falling to the players that they shouldn't do? Probably not over the course of a season. We've got to say, Emmanuel Latilath, who's a brilliant striker, he's not really had any chances in the last 3 games, despite Middlesbrough creating a shed load in that time. They've just been, as you alluded to, we've just been falling to the wrong person, or the wrong people rather. So that should address itself over time, and I feel like Middlesbrough, they've just got to keep doing what they're doing, and eventually things will slide their way. But look, what we're thinking result-wise with the T's We're Derby, Justin, I think this is a really interesting but also difficult one to call, because you've essentially got 2 questions, haven't you? Will Sunderland bounce back after last week, and then can Middlesbrough be more clinical? If we knew the answer to either of those 2 questions, it would actually be quite easy to predict how this one will go. But right now, you've got 2 big question marks next to them, haven't you?
There's also 2 other factors you've got to bring in. Is it the derby aspect that's going to impact the game as well, and a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday? Because those 2 things do impact games, I feel, because derbies take away, you get a bit more of a cagey performance from both sides, whoever they are. And then a 12:30 on a Saturday, again, I feel like these games tend to start a little bit slower than they would at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, for example. Just a theory. I'd be keen to delve into this a little bit deeper, but that's the feeling I get. It needs an excessive amount of research that, quite frankly, I've not done. But that's the eye test for me. But you are right. The first 2 questions are, are Sunderland, can they bounce back? If this was Sunderland before the international break, I'd be more confident in predicting them to get a result. But they're reeling from a defeat where they did concede a fair few chances in that second half against Plymouth. And that adds a layer of uncertainty for a young side. And then with Middlesbrough, if anyone's been listening over the past week or so, I'm scorned by Middlesbrough for picking them as my bankers in these preview episodes. I've got no trust in this team whatsoever. That being said, spoiler alert, I've not picked them this week. So maybe there's a result on the way.
Yeah, well, as we say, Middlesbrough have been really, really good so far. It's just about putting that ball in the back of the bloody net. That's the headline ultimately, isn't it? It's got to be said, Sunderland's record against Middlesbrough is really poor. They've only beaten Boro once in the league since 2008. So how much of a say that will have on the result in this game, I'm not too sure. But it is certainly something to keep in mind for predicting this game. Right, It's now time for us to do the second tier bet builder, and our friends at SPK. They're offering a 50% boost on any £5 bet builder for Sunderland v Middlesbrough. That's right, 50% boost, and offers like that, combined with SPK's industry-leading odds, make it the best place to bet on the EFL this season. And if you don't believe us, sign up today and find out for yourselves. So every Friday, we're making our own bet builder with 4 selections all relating to our game of the week. So that's 2 for Justin and 2 for moi. Justin, give us your first selection, please.
I've gone with the half-time result to be a draw. As I was alluding to, I think it's going to be a tight game. Despite Sunderland fans not wanting to call it a derby, it's a derby for the outsiders, and I think that's going to play a big role in both of these sides. As I say, keeping it tight. Boro have been wasteful over the past 5 games so far, and Sunderland are probably going to want to keep it tight after a very poor defeat, try and control the game, try and control the atmosphere as well. And like I said, I'm not going to buy into the non-derby element of the game. This will be a ferocious one, and I think that's going to diminish the quality we see throughout this. So yes, I'm going with the half-time result to be a draw.
Yep, I'm not against this one, Justin. My first selection is Luke Ayling to be carded. Oh, what? Ryan's gone for a card selection? Shock. You're damn right I have. And I'm feeling pretty good about this one, Peachy. I'll tell you why. First reason is because the referee is Simon Hooper. He loves a card, does old Simey Hoops. He's refereed 19 games this calendar year, and each team has received a card in 17 of those games. But I've opted for Luke Ayling to pick up a card for this reason. He's up against Romain Mundle. Mundle is the player who's been fouled the most per minute in the Championship this season out of every player who's featured in all 5 games so far. In Sunderland's last 2 games, the opposition right-back has been carded. And it's got to be said, Luke Ayling loves a card as well. He got 8 in 19 appearances for Middlesbrough last season. So there's a lot going in the way of this pick, Justin. So that's why I've gone with Luke Ayling to be carded. You right with that?
You've done your research. I like that. Therefore, I cannot disagree. It's going to be hard, that the horse mane he has keeping control of the Sunderland wide players in this game.
Yes, and the national hunt season is getting underway soon. So Luke Ayling, being a horse, as we were alluding to last season, needs to get up to pick up the pace with that, doesn't he? And Romain Mundle is, I don't know where we're going with this. Justin, what's your next selection?
A little bit easier. Got me for under 3.5 goals to be scored. It goes without saying, Boro do not take their chances. They average the most shots in the league, but have scored just 6. They're underperforming their XG heavily, if you want to bring that in. But if you just want to look at their shots, they're just simply not taking their chances. Sunderland likely to be a little bit more clinical than Boro, as mentioned with my first pick. And like I said, I expect the quality to be lacking in this game. Sunderland do score goals. Middlesbrough have the potential to score goals, but still potential right now. So I think both sides are going to feel the impacts of their situation, if you like, situations, the young, naive side that Sunderland are, and also the lack of clinical touch from Boro.
Yeah, we've been a bit critical of Middlesbrough in this section and their lack of taking chances, but it's also got to be said they're a very, very good defensive side, and so are Sunderland. Only Leeds have a lower XG against them than these two this season. So 2 very good defences coming up against each other here. So goals should be at a premium in that regard, because that tends to be how it goes. But I think you've also got to take into account Middlesbrough's lack of a cutting edge in front of goal as well. So I'm on board with that pick too, Justin. And the final selection for our bet builder is Sunderland to win. Now, Sunderland were fantastic prior to that loss to Plymouth last week. They just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly in that game. So I think it was just a bad day at the office. I would be surprised if it were to carry on into this game, considering how good they were prior to that. While Middlesbrough are misfiring, there's absolutely no denying that. That's not been a one-off, as opposed to Sunderland's bad half last weekend. You know, Middlesbrough have been so misfiring in front of goal pretty much every week so far. And I do think Boro are a very good side. I believe results will turn for them sooner rather than later, especially if they keep playing like they are. But if you're asking me who's going to win this game, then I'd say a Sunderland victory is the most likely out of the 2. Justin, what do you think?
it's always get a bit nervous predicting these. But again, if I am going to be more confident in this side, especially early on in the season, it's a side that have been in form, who have been taking chances, who have been very clinical in both boxes, and that is Sunderland. As you say, Middlesbrough do have their strengths. They're going to create chances against this side, but who's more likely to put the ball in the back of net? It's the Black Cats.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're expecting the Black Cats to bounce back after disappointment last weekend. And a quick roundup of our bet builder then. We've got half-time result to be a draw, Luke Ayling to be carded, under 3.5 goals, and Sunderland to win. And a £5 stake on that beautiful bet builder returns £130 thanks to SBK's 50% boost. 130 big ones, people. But remember, if you don't fancy our bet builder, with SBK, you can create your own bet builder from a range of markets. T's and C's apply, over 18s only. And please gamble responsibly. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll make our banker and outsider predictions for the weekend in the Championship. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We're here to have a look ahead to the weekend, and in each preview episode of the Second Tier, Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider, so someone we think is going to win, but is bigger odds with our friends at SBK than their opponent. We're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. Whoever loses has to do a forfeit, which is going to be a mascot at an EFL game next season. The current scores look like this. It's 6-4 to Justin Peach, so no change in the difference between us after we both got our outsiders correct last weekend, but not our bankers, which is a new one, isn't it? Not sure that's happened before, Justin.
Does that make us more of an expert if we're getting our outsiders right and not our bankers?
I'm not sure. I really don't know, Justin. Who knows at this stage?
Yeah, I think the bankers make us look a bit dumb, and then getting the outsiders right, actually, it sort of balances itself back out. So maybe we're just average.
Yeah, we're just average Championship experts. Who knows? Who knows? Justin, do you want to get things underway with your banker for the weekend, please?
I've got a feeling about this one. I've gone with West Brom to win at home to Plymouth on Saturday. The stats back this one up. The stats back it up. That's all I'm going to throw in there. Carlos Corberan has lost just 6 games in 40 at the Hawthorns. He's won 26 of those games. Plymouth have won just 3 away games in the Championship since returning to the Second Tier last season. And this is the big one. Wayne Rooney has won just 14 away games since taking over permanently at Derby County. He's won just 14 away games in his managerial career.
Oh, bloody hell.
That's not good. Just to contextualise that even more, he's taken charge of 147 home and away games in total.
I was going to say, that's a bit more context. That would have been very useful in that, because I'm not sure how many away games he would have been in charge for. If
he's been in charge of just 14 away games, it's a really good record. But in the face of taking charge of almost 150 games as a manager, he's won just 14 away from home. It's really, really poor. His away record's poor. Plymouth's away record's poor. West Brom's home record's very good. And that's without talking about how good West Brom have started the season so far, and how, in our eyes, Plymouth have been very below average and averaged out against Sunderland in that second half last week. It's going to be a tough game for Plymouth against West Brom, especially at the Hawthorns. And to say West Brom do not lose that many games at home, it's going to be a difficult one. And stats back this one up. It's really hard to make a case and to dance around that as much as I need to. I don't need to, because the numbers are there. The numbers are there.
Yeah, I'm sure this won't exercise Plymouth fans at all. I wonder if Pieface will be chirping up if West Brom smash Plymouth this weekend. It's got to be said, even though Plymouth did score 3 against Sunderland last weekend, they are still massively lacking a cutting edge, because the 3 goals each came with a fair bit of fortune. That's got to be said. You can look back at them yourselves if you want to. But I'm still a bit concerned about Plymouth going forwards, and just overall, really, because they have been, prior to Sunderland, the worst team in the league. But speaking of winding up fans, Justin, I'm interested to hear your take on this because I did a video on the Second Tier YouTube channel this week where I was talking about how West Brom are defying the odds because of everything like their financial situation. 99% of the video was positive about the current state of West Brom, but in classic podcasting fashion, the 1% pissed off a few West Brom fans. And what I said was, I don't think West Brom's squad is stronger than last season. You could even make a fair argument that it's actually weaker. If Baggies fans disagree with me on that, then that's fine. It's just a personal opinion, but I'd be interested to hear what you think.
I think it depends how you look at it. I think, on one hand, they've lost a lot of international pedigree in Jan Veer, in Okay Koslu and Nathaniel Chalobah, sort of. Lost some senior players in Connor Townsend and Cedric Kipre. Brandon Thomas-Sante was good for 8-9 goals, maybe double figures if he's very prolific a season as well. And then you've got fairly okay squad players like Eric Peters and Adam Reach released as well. A lot of experience quality has gone out the door there, but I do believe they are more rounded this season. Maybe lacking up front, but I think they've got better strength in depth this season than they did last season, and I think that gives Corberán more options. That's probably a diplomatic way of saying I'm sitting in the middle on this debate because I do recognise that they did lose a lot of quality in the summer, but I also recognise that they brought in additional quality in depth. Maybe not to the same standard as the players that departed last season, but I think there's more potential there this season.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think, all right. I was surprised at how many people were saying that they're massively stronger than they were last season, which I just don't think is the case for me personally. But look, I'm still really positive on West Brom this season. I just wanted to hear whether you agreed with me on that particular point. But as long as you got King Carlos in the dugout, then
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter how good your bloody squad is because you're going to do bloody well whatever happens, aren't you? Let's go to my banker this weekend. I've gone with Leeds United to win away at Cardiff City on Saturday afternoon. It's the game which could be the final death knell in the coffin for Erol Bulut at Cardiff. There's been rumours all week about him potentially being dismissed as manager, and a loss here would probably be just about it. They have been so unbelievably poor. 1 point on the board, 1 goal to their name. It says a lot that Derby were able to afford Eber Adams pulling off the miss of a lifetime against Cardiff and still ended up winning comfortably. There just doesn't seem to be a plan. They're woeful in attack. The players reportedly have lost trust in the manager. It's more of a surprise that he's in charge for this game than it would have been if he wasn't in charge. So that says something, I suppose. And they're coming up against one of the teams you would least like to face in Leeds United. We talk about Middlesbrough being in a false position. The same applies to Leeds. They definitely deserve more than the 2 wins they've got so far. They were the better team against Burnley last weekend despite losing. And you fully expect them to get back on track because they're simply a much better side than Cardiff. So it's very difficult to make a case for Cardiff in this particular game. Do you think that'll be it for Bulut if Cardiff do lose here, Justin?
Yeah, yes. Weirdly, if he's going to go and if it's that sort of confident, I think he should have gone this week. I think it's strange that they're hanging around, but it probably tells of, as we were alluding to in our midweek episode, that maybe Cardiff don't have a plan post Bulut because obviously he signed a new deal in the summer. They did back in with a fairly active transfer window as well. I don't think they have don't have a replacement lined up for old Errol, and I think that's where this delay is coming from. So I think the writing is on the wall unless they pick up drastically. And are they going to do that against Leeds? I don't think that's going to be the case. It's more likely that something bonkers is going to happen. That Aaron Ramsey is going to get through 90 minutes without picking up a calf injury. That's probably more likely to happen in this game, which is probably a bit harsh, but also very true on old Aaron. So yeah, it's really hard to see Bulut getting away. Another weekend without, firstly, without having to speak to the media and also being in the job at Cardiff.
Yeah, you can foresee the atmosphere turning rather sour here as well, with it being at home if things aren't going very well, because the Cardiff fans they've seemed to have made their mind up with Erol Bulut already, and that's more likely to harm their chances than help them. I think that's safe to say. So that's another thing going against Erol Bulut this weekend. So there are mine and Justin's two bankers for the weekend, and every week we combine these two selections with a bet on the full-time result of our game of the weekend to create our very own second tier featured multiple with SBK. So this week we're going for Leeds, West Brom and Sunderland, all to win. A £10 bet on that returns £56 with SBK. You can create your own multiple with 3 or more bets on the full-time result of any game from across the Championship. T's and C's apply, over 18s only, and please do gamble responsibly. It's outsider time, ladies and gents. Justin, we got both of these correct last weekend. Let's see if we can do the same this weekend. What have you got for me, big boy?
Watford to win away at Norwich on Saturday. Watford have been very bright under Tom Cleverley this season, while Norwich have probably, fair to say, failed to find their groove. The Canaries have drawn both games at home as well this season. I think Watford on the counter have looked very promising. They've got a lot of bright sparks that can really, really counter. And I mean, their goal against Coventry, equaliser against Coventry last week, was just a 3-pass move into the final third. And I think with Norwich still finding their feet, Watford are going to probably seem a little bit more settled than Thorpe's side. They're actually also very active shot takers as well, averaging the 6th highest in the league for shots and 5th highest in the league for shots on target. Probably going to have I won't say a good time at Norwich, but certainly a prolific time, if you like. Not in terms of scoring goals, but certainly creating shot opportunities. And that's going to ultimately put a Norwich defence that has been under pressure so far this season under a little bit more pressure. So yes, gone with Watford to win away at Norwich.
Yeah, when we were doing Zamora time last Sunday, bit of a peek behind the curtain for anyone who isn't signed up to the Patreon, but we were saying that we think Norwich will be a bit of a slow burner this season. It may take a bit of time for them to get going, so I can see where you're coming from with this one, Justin. Of course, this is Norwich's first game since losing Narcis Palach as first team coach after he joined Stoke as manager. I am led to believe he was quite an influential character at Carrow Road, so it'd be interesting to see how they get on without him. And also Paul Clements, the goalkeeping coach as well, for that matter, who Huddersfield's former head of operations, Lee Bromby, is called the best in the country at what he does, which is quite the compliment, isn't it? But do you think that could have an effect on Norwich, Justin, headed into this game?
I don't think it will. As good a coach Palach is, and also he's very, very well liked with players. We were talking about that in midweek, how he's very good at developing those relationships with players. But I don't think it will have too much of an impact. I think there will be coaches that can step up into the fold and ultimately bring it through. And if Palach is the genius behind Norwich's success this season, then I think they'll happily see the back of him, because they've been very, very average. That's a very cynical way of saying it, but I don't think they'll be too fussed, no.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how Watford gets on, because they've been a bit fortunate in the last couple of games. I think that's fair to say. But Tommy Cleves is doing a fantastic job so far, isn't he? So we'll see if that can continue. Something, well, actually, while we're just mentioning Stoke, Justin, something that did only just cross my mind minutes before recording this is, we were saying in yesterday's show, I'm feeling quite optimistic about the Palach appointment, as discussed yesterday. I think it's fair to say you're not feeling as optimistic about it, but I forgot that we had a £50 bet at the start of the season where I said Stoke wouldn't finish above 14th. So now we've got the turning of the tables, I suppose, where you were optimistic about Stoke at the start of the season. I wasn't. And now you're not as optimistic, and I am. So I don't know where we stand with that bet now.
I would have been more optimistic if Steven Schumacher had stayed at the helm. I think I'm a little bit, the risk is bothering me a little bit, and that's maybe where the sentiment is lying. That subconscious of mine is telling me, look, this is an inexperienced manager. He might struggle. He might not get results. This could be a 3-manager season for Stoke.
So that's if Steven Schumacher was in charge for the whole season, you'd have been on board with that bet, but now you're not so much.
No, you may as well have paid out in March if Schumacher was still in charge.
The thing is, I was under the impression that Steven Schumacher would last more than 5 games, and I was so confident about that. But in that case, then, do you want to swap it around? Do you want to say that?
No.
What? So you... Hang on, but you said
stop moving the
Hang on, you've just said,
bus.
though, that if The bus.
Yeah, I just made that one up. I couldn't.
The goalpost.
The goalpost. That's the one.
You were close. Yeah. But do you want to swap? If you're saying that, you think you're not as confident about Stoke finishing above 14th now with Palach, and I am more confident. Do you want to swap it around then?
I'd rather have time to think about it, Ryan. I'll be honest with you.
Okay, fine. We'll come back to it on Sunday then, I guess, and see if you fancy it then. So stay tuned for that one, ladies and gents. What a turn for the books after 5 games of the season. Let's go to my outsider, and this is an interesting one, ladies and gents. I've gone with Oxford to win away at Bristol City on Saturday afternoon, and the reason this is an interesting one is because, of course, it's the Liam Manning derby. Liam Manning, who, of course, left Oxford around this time last year to move to Ashton Gate, and judging from social media over the past week, Oxford fans haven't forgotten about it. Yeah, I think Manning could get a fair bit of stick here from the looks of it, but Oxford fans are loving life under the man who replaced him. Des Buckingham's just continued the momentum from last season, and they'll just want to keep riding that crest of a wave for as long as possible. And if it comes at the expense of their former manager who ditched them for pastures new, then it will only taste even sweeter. And it's worth mentioning there's quite a bit of pressure on Liam Manning at Bristol City. I'm seeing fans losing patience with him a bit. They have only got the 1 win so far this season and have lost the last 2 games 3-0. Now, in fairness to him, I don't think they were as bad in those 2 games as the score lines suggest, but it's not ideal, it's got to be said. They're leaking a lot of goals. They've got the joint worst defensive record in the league so far. And look, I still believe Liam Manning will come good at Bristol City, but they're undoubtedly in a bad moment. And I think his old club could take advantage of that this weekend. Justin, what do you think?
I think it's certainly a game for Oxford where they need to take advantage of that situation that Liam Manning's under, and also the case in which probably Bristol City's heads are dropping if they concede a goal. I know Oxford are a much better home side than they are away side, but we are only a handful of games into the season.
They've played 2 away games, Justin.
Doesn't matter. The record suggests that they're a better home side than they are an away side, and that's all I'm going to go off at right now. But this is a good time to play Bristol City. It really is. It's a good time to play Bristol City. They are conceding goals. Their heads are dropping when they concede a goal. And unfortunately, that is a bad habit to have this early on in the season. Performances have been okay. You are absolutely right on that. But ultimately, it's about putting those chances away and being clinical in both boxes. And they haven't been. So that pressure on Liam Manning could well build if they lose this. I'm not saying he should be sacked, but do you think that pressure from fans and a poor start to the season and potentially losing to your previous employer could that make a really, really negative situation for Liam Manning? I'm not saying you'd get sacked, but could that thought enter the mind of those running the club?
Well, it'll be a negative situation. I mean, it's already a bit of a negative situation with the way that things have been going. But I'd be very surprised if he's anywhere near the sack, because I think Bristol City, historically a very patient club, they see Liam Manning as the man in the long term. So I'd be amazed if they're even considering that right now. But this certainly won't be ideal if they were to lose here, despite Justin's insinuations that Oxford are absolutely hopeless away from home because they've lost 2 away games. It's got to be said, one loss was to Coventry, where they were drawing 2-2 before a mistake in the last minute by Will Volks gave Coventry the win, and then Blackburn was the other one where we were at, weren't we? Oxford didn't play terribly in that game, and they were also missing Cameron Brannigan for that, who is, without a doubt, their star player. So maybe not as hopeless as Justin Peach likes to make out. So don't worry about that too much, is what I would say based off the first 2 away games that they've had so far this season. Right, those have been our predictions for the weekend. That means it's time for this.
All right. Settle down, you lot. It's time for the Craig Bryson pub quiz.
You're bloody right. It's time for the Craig Bryson pub quiz. And this is how it works. Justin Peach opposite. I say hi, Justin.
Hello. Hi.
He's going to give me 6 clues about a former Championship player, each more revealing than the next. I simply have to guess who the bugger is. They must have made over 200 Championship appearances in their career, and please, for the love of God, don't forget about the Dexter Blackstock rule. They must be more relevant than Dexter Blackstock. Such a crucial part of this game that many forget. So what have you got for me, Justin Peach, you bastard?
Ooh. I've made 326 appearances at Championship level, scoring 8.
That's a defender. 8 goals, you say? I'll throw first one out there, Jason Shackle.
No, it is not Jason Shackle.
Okay.
The tall centre-back. The next clue is...
Great observation. Fantastic. Can I have the next clue, please?
It's all about description. It's all about creating visuals for the listener. I made my debut in 2001, then First Division, of course, not the Championship, turning out for Stoke City.
I don't... That was a bit before my time, so I'm not really sure who started off at Stoke, but I'll go for Andy Wilkinson. I don't know.
I think he did start out at Stoke, but a lot. I
don't think he made 200 Championship appearances, but throw him out there. It's nice to hear him mentioned every so often.
It is. An angry fullback. Next clue is, third clue I'll add. Despite my Championship presence, I've also played in the Premier League 127 times for 2 different clubs.
Ooh. Someone's a big boy, aren't they?
A very big boy.
Is that a clue?
He's a very big boy.
Yeah.
I could be talking about anything.
Okay, fine. Well, 300 Championship appearances plus over 100 Premier League appearances is quite a lot, isn't it?
An ever-present player.
Very ever-present. I'll go with... It's way too early, but Ryan Shawcross. Don't think that's right.
It's not right.
No.
He didn't make his debut in 2001, and it wasn't
That's
for
also
Stoke. True. Next clue, fourth clue. This is a good one.
Okay.
I've played club football with the following players: Sylvani Banks-Blank, Zach Clough, Matt Jarvis, Benoit Asuakotu, and Rio Ferdinand.
Has he really?
He has.
Well, I can't remember who... Well, Benoit Asuakotu played for Spurs and QPR. I mean, this is not really helping. This is just making me trying to remember which clubs these guys played for. I've got one, actually. No, he's not played. He's played more than 100 games at Premier League level, but I'm struggling to think of anyone else right now. I'll throw it out anyway. Richard Dunn.
It's incorrect.
No, I was just thinking because he's played for QPR, and I know Ferdinand and Asuakotu have. Zach Clough's a very random one.
It is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. This is a bit more of a revealing clue.
Okay.
The next one. I've been managed by Mick McCarthy, Tony Pulis, Harry Redknapp, and I was also labelled a tough tackling midfielder. Maybe a bit of a shithouse as well.
Can you give me some bloody clubs here, please? Bloody hell.
The clues in the clubs. The clues in the clubs are in the players.
That feels significant, ladies and gentlemen. I think I might have got it. Yeah, I think I have. Is it the one and only Sir Carl Henry?
It is.
Yeah. Absolute shithouse, ladies and gents. I managed to get that despite only having one clue on which club he's played for, which I think is pretty good going, actually.
The clues in the clubs he played for were the players that I named. Zach Clough was Bolton, Matt Jarvis and Banks-Blake were Wolves, Rio Ferdinand and Asuakotu was Spurs, he wishes, QPR.
Yeah. But still, tricky. I would have liked a few more clues in there. I think if I wasn't such a top tier Championship expert, Justin, I would have struggled there. What was the last clue?
The last clue was most known for playing for Wolves, making 272 appearances in all comps before moving to QPR, and had a well-known spat with Joe Barton while the pair were teammates. I also broke future teammate Bobby Zamora's leg.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. If you put this last clue as follows us on Twitter, then that would have been class as well.
Mm-hmm. I've got a bonus clue, which isn't really a clue because I found this out while researching the Craig Bryson.
Yes.
Do you want it? I earned a provisional call-up to the England squad in 2011.
Fuck off. Really?
Yep.
Bloody hell, we were really in the dirt at one stage, weren't we? No disrespect, Carl, if you're listening. But my God, who was that? Was that
Fabio Capello? To be fair, Capello called up 40 players to provisional squad to play Denmark. Not in tournament time either. It's 2011.
I would have loved to have known who else was in that squad. I think Dave Kitson got a call up as well.
Yeah, I couldn't find out who was in that 40-man provisional squad.
Oh.
He didn't make the 26, unsurprisingly, but he got a call up to a squad.
Yeah, I would love to have seen that squad because that's boy, oh boy, that would have been something amazing.